Way back in 1960, ABC News held what we would now call a virtual presidential debate. That event was the third televised showdown between Kennedy and Nixon. Political historians generally agree Nixon won it, but of course the damage had already been done to his campaign by the first. 60 years later, the Commission on Presidential Debates says it's going to do it all again. With Donald Trump currently carrying coronavirus, it wants the candidates in separate rooms for health and safety. But Mr. Trump says he won't do it. Joining me now is Julie Norman from the UCL Centre on US Politics. Julie, if this does go ahead, will it work?
Well, David, I certainly think that it could. I mean, obviously, a virtual debate is not ideal. It's not ideal for the candidates or for the viewers. But just as we've seen through a lot of things in this very different year with Corona, a lot of us had to adapt to virtual platforms. And it wouldn't be impossible for a debate. We would still get to hear from the candidates. We'd still get to hear the responses from questions. The fact is, it wouldn't be the setting that Trump thrives in, but there's still an opportunity there to have good discussion and good debate on real policies.
Now, obviously, all of this is just happening as we record just now, Julie, but I'm wondering, would it make good TV? Would people watch it?
You know, I think that this is something that, of course, the networks have been thinking about too. But I think we saw with the conventions that even something that seemed like it would not work, like a virtual convention, with the proper forethought and being able to design it well, it actually was a more compelling viewing experience for most people watching, and people really liked that format. And so I don't think it would necessarily preclude people from watching, especially those who are the types to really be tuning into debates at this point anyway.
Now, if Donald Trump does stick to his guns, refuses to do this debate, would not having a debate have any impact on an election? How much impact do these second and third debates have?
Yeah, well, certainly the first debate is usually the most crucial. It's really when the first time that we hear the two candidates face to face like that. The second and third don't usually attract quite as much viewership. But with that said, it's still a really crucial time in the race to be building momentum, to be trying to convince your supporters to go out to the polls and be trying to get those last few undecided voters. With this election season and with Trump as one of the candidates, of course, everything is a bit different. The first debate was really seen as such a debacle and a disaster by most viewers, as well as analysts and commentators, that I think not having a second and third debate would not be awful by some people's assessments. But at the same time, some people are hoping that there's a chance to see something better and actually hear something more substantial from these two candidates that we didn't hear in the first.
So would it actually suit Joe Biden's campaign more if there wasn't a second debate, as Donald Trump is currently behind in the polls? He's the one who has to gain the most, isn't he?
Well, it's true. I mean, Biden is certainly leading right now. And, a lot, obviously, as we know, can change very quickly day to day in these kinds of races. Biden is really just trying to hold on to that lead. With that said, a debate is something that Biden usually performs fairly well at. He's still trying to make sure that he can mobilize voters to come out for him on election day. And so it really wouldn't hurt him to have another debate.
And of course, we had the debate last night between the vice presidential candidates. That seemed to go a bit more smoothly than the first presidential debate, although there was this issue with a fly on Mike Pence's hair that seems to have attracted the most attention. But it was quite a successful debate format, wasn't it?
Indeed, yes. The fly certainly got the buzz, as it were. But, this debate was definitely more of what we're used to, a lot more civil in tone. Definitely still sharp exchanges between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, but a bit more focus on substance and just a bit more civility between the two of them. No real surprises one way or another, but we heard the topics that we expected to hear about: Kamala Harris pressing Mike Pence on the pandemic in particular, hearing a lot more about healthcare, racial protests, and other issues that are actually affecting Americans.
It was almost normal, wasn't it, Julie?
It was almost normal. It was strikingly almost normal.